Black the Name by D.B. Halpert. Narrated by the author, D.B. Halpert. Chapter 25. Gratitude. The sun rises over the ship in the morning, and with a knock on her door, Elizabeth wakes in a similarly confused panic that she had to the knock when Aldrin knocked the day before. With a breath to calm herself, a stretch, and rubbing her eyes, Elizabeth stands and opens the door. The large-built man with tanned skin and thick, well-kept black beard stands on the other side, leaning on a pole to relieve pressure from his still injured leg. With the door opening to reveal Elizabeth in her loose and nearly too short nightgown, the man simply begins to stammer. So, it wasn't a dream. Sorry for disturbing you. I just wanted to thank you for healing my leg, at least as much as you did. With a smile, Elizabeth responds, I'm just glad I could be of any help. Similar to a young boy talking to a pretty girl for the first time, the man is nearly blushing as he awkwardly scratches the back of his head, continuing. Well, the others took an interest in the little orb creature that helped us yesterday, and Pearl said that you are the one to talk to about it. Oh, Boop? Well, he's been my friend for a very long time. I only recently learned that he is something called a spirit companion of mine. Elizabeth explains as Boop rises up behind her, yawning. Well, the others were kind of wondering if you would want to help on deck, if even just as a stress reliever. Turning to Boop, Elizabeth exceptional curves draws the man's eyes, and he tries desperately not to get caught staring while she asks the floating eye orb. Well, buddy, you want to go help on deck? Boop responds with a gleeful grin, and turning back to the man in the hall, catching his eye drifting over her, Elizabeth says, Well, guess he would like to. Probably better for him than being cooped up in this room all day. That's awesome. Well, if I can do anything to repay you, please don't hesitate to ask. The man says, awkwardly trying to hide his blushing and drifting gaze before his attention is instantly drawn to a deep, rumbling growl from Elizabeth's stomach. Could you show me where to get food? Pearl's been getting it for me since we got on the boat. Eyes wide at the simplicity of the request, the man looks at Elizabeth's eyes, not sure if she's joking, and he responds, Sure. Would you like to change, or... Looking down at her nightgown, Elizabeth smiles. Yeah, I guess so. One moment. Elizabeth closes the door, and as hurriedly as she can, she pulls on the dress Pearl brought her, which is predicted, holds tightly with its fabric stretching to contain her contours. A light purple waist liner, which is intended to tightly hold a woman's waist, is to accentuate the three sections of the dress, sits loose around her with a large pink ribbon running down her that holds the dress together, with the ends untied, hanging over and down the back of her legs. Opening the door, Elizabeth asks, Can you tie a bow? Struck again by Elizabeth's appearance, the man is stunned for a split second before responding, Yeah, I know how to tie a bow. Turning her back to the man, Elizabeth pulls her braid over her shoulder, asking, Could you tie this for me, then, please? The man's eyes are wide as his hands reach out, and he fights every fiber of his being that begs him to take advantage of the opportunity set before him. And seeing Boop tilt behind Elizabeth, the man straightens his mind and completely swallows his lewd desires, tying the bow and avoiding physical contact with Elizabeth. Pulling the bow to be as tight as it can go, with the back seam of the dress, the man is surprised when the midsection sits loosely around Elizabeth's waist. And with the bow tied, he says, "There, done," while quickly pulling his hands away. Twirling around, Elizabeth smiles, again saying, "Thank you." "Let's go get you some food, then," the man says, turning to lead the way away. "That would be amazing," Elizabeth responds, stepping to follow the man, with her stomach again growling with hunger. Elizabeth gets her breakfast, and Boop joins the crew on deck, and the day passes uneventfully, letting the night come to the ease of the group and crew. In the dim of the night, Elizabeth returns to the wounded man's hammock and changes his bandages, and with her prayer to Archangel, is filled again with the same uplifting energy, again healing the wound, reducing the time it would take to heal by another few weeks. Returning to her room, Elizabeth finds Boop asleep in the hammock. Changing into her nightgown and moving her snoring friend out of her way, she lies down and drifts to sleep. Another day comes upon the ship. Elizabeth wakes to the light drifting through her window for the first time since boarding the ship. Slipping back into the dress, she finds Pearl before she can join the others on the deck of the ship, who ties the ribbon. Boop returns to helping the crew, which to him feels like play, and Elizabeth spends another day reading the books assigned to her by Alfredo, both eager and semi-wary of the night to come as she and Pearl are set to test another 2 potions. While it will have been only 2 days since she consumed the replicator, night does come, and Pearl returns to Elizabeth's room, entering with a cheerful, "All right, Doctor, what are we doing to me today?" Looking at the lineup of colorful test tubes of concoctions, all of which could have permanent unknown side effects, Elizabeth's head tilts and she taps her chin with an index finger, thinking, and grabbing one of the test tubes, turns to Pearl, saying, "Well, Miss Sarga, you mentioned that you are not satisfied with your body. This should give you an evening in a body that is not your own." Looking into the test tube, Pearl awes at the liquid, which fades through a spectrum of colors and bubbles strangely with pockets of air in non-spherical shapes. Looking back to Elizabeth, she then asks, "And what about you? What is your elixir for this evening?" "I hadn't really thought about it," Elizabeth responds, looking back to the remaining test tubes. With a shrug, she grabs a glass container, which holds within it a 2-colored mixture that is perfectly split, with a blue warm liquid holding itself separate from a cool orange liquid. Turning to Pearl, Elizabeth explains, "This one should make feeling warmth switch with feeling cold." Tapping the rounded bottom of the glass liquids holders, Pearl and Elizabeth drain their respective potions and sit waiting for an effect to reveal itself. It isn't but a few seconds before Pearl feels her stomach turn. Grabbing at it, she looks to Elizabeth, saying, "Ugh, this one is making me feel meow." With the call of a house cat escaping from her throat in place of her statement, Pearl's eyes immediately widen with a sudden feline noise, interrupting her speech, and she asks, "Did I just meow?" Her voice cuts out again to the call of a domesticated cat. Elizabeth tries to hold back her laughter behind her hand, responding, "I think you might be turning into a cat." "What do you meow?" "That is a new formula for polymorph potion. I guess one of the downfalls is it doesn't let you focus on the form you wanted to take." Before Pearl can say or ask anything else, her form compresses in a seemingly painless manner down into the shape of a hairless cat. With another second passing, a full coat of fur grows with a puff, though for all intents and purposes, physically a cat. The curse placed on Pearl shows through, with the feline having a full maw of sharp, shark-like teeth, and with fur that takes on the sea blue that her hair had become. The cat's eyes glow with the effect of the ocular bioluminescence transcending the transformation, and proving Pearl to remain mentally stable in her new form. The feline eyes squint at Elizabeth before the small cat pats its head with its paw. Nearly cracking into laughter, Elizabeth connects her mind with Pearl. Cat. What? All right. How long is this supposed to last? The normal version of one of these potions is 4 hours. Dang it. All right. Well, are you feeling anything from your potion? No, nothing. Well, could you help me to my room? I appear to have lost my ability to open doors. Sure, Elizabeth responds, stepping to the door and opening it for the blue cat to lead her to Pearl's room, where she opens the other door to find a barrel which holds the hammock bed out of the way, filled with water. With a leap, Pearl jumps into the barrel, and with a splash, the feline body begins to swim in a circle within the water. Elizabeth finally cracks, laughing. You're a catfish! Pearl swims up and grabs the barrel's edge, seemingly laughing. After a moment, the two calm, and Elizabeth returns to her room, where she changes to her nightgown and lays drifting to sleep. Morning comes again, and Elizabeth wakes to the slightest hint of sunlight in her room, and she rushes to Pearl's. Swinging the door open, Elizabeth finds Pearl pacing in the small room, trailed by a long, sleek, blue cat-like tail. Seeing Elizabeth enter, Pearl stops, turning to the door, saying in a worried panic, Lizzie, it didn't go away. The tail didn't go away. Looking into Pearl's worried eyes, Elizabeth points gently towards her face. Not just the tail. Your eyes are still cat-like. What? Well, will they change back? I don't know, Elizabeth shrugs, continuing. But, I mean, it isn't a bad look for you. Spinning, Pearl poses, asking, You think so? Definitely. Plus, the crew accepting Boop, I'm sure they won't mind you having a tail, as long as it doesn't get in people's way. I guess it's pretty cute. Thanks, Lizzie. I was having a panic attack for a moment there. Tying Elizabeth's dress's bow, Pearl makes her way to the deck with Boop and a smile in her step. Elizabeth returns to her room to grab the test tubes, which she brings back to Pearl's room, stashing them in the magic satchel before returning to her reading of the Alchemist textbook. It is less than a minute before Elizabeth's door slams open, with Aldrin in the hall, with an anger in his stance. Seeing Elizabeth look up from her book, Aldrin asks, Where are they? Elizabeth puts her book down, asking, What are you talking about? Storming into the room, Aldrin starts searching through Elizabeth's possessions, demanding, Where are those stupid potions? What are you talking about? I didn't make a fuss when you wanted to make yourself look prettier. I thought it must be a girl thing. But Pearl has a tail now. This needs to stop. There are no more potions in my possession. With a frustrated breath, Aldrin squints his eyes at Elizabeth, and turning from her, he leaves the room, still radiating with anger. Slipping past Aldrin, Pearl peeks into Elizabeth's room with a worried confusion. Pearl asks, Why was he here? Having just picked up the book, Elizabeth rolls her eyes, sitting back down, calmly explaining, He is upset that we are testing the potions, and that you have a cattail. Really? That's a strange... I actually think you were right. It's pretty cute. He didn't find them. I put them in your bag. Wait, you knew he would do this? Honestly, I thought it would be Auburn, but those two don't understand that we are becoming more special than they are. What are you talking about? Whatever. It is, he doesn't have a right to tell us what we can do with our bodies, the jerk. He didn't get any of the potions, so it's fine, Pearl. We can continue testing in a few days, if you still want to. Oh, yeah. If only to frustrate him. Oh, by the way, that man you healed, his name's Richard. He is super grateful. Just to let you know. With that, Pearl steps from Elizabeth's room, and Elizabeth lifts her book and returns to reading with a smile on her face. The day passes, and the night comes, with no exciting event taking place. And morning comes again. The tedium of sailing through sunny, smooth waters with a strong wind at the ship's back allows Elizabeth to finish the first of the books she was assigned. The tome is by the same author and begin reading the second. A book in older and poorer physical condition, the tome is by the same author and goes into explanations of other factors ingredients add to alchemical reactions, listing them as stability, volatility, speed, slow, and a fifth category that factors that are specific to extraordinary ingredients, special, which is not itself covered in as much detail as the other four factors in the same book. The day passes again uneventfully, bringing a quiet night and another uneventful day. With another night returning to the ship's voyage, Pearl knocks, returning to Elizabeth's room. Lizzie, it's been another 3 days. With a smile that would be unsettling to anyone but Pearl, Elizabeth returns asking, And you want to continue testing with me? That is good. I was just about to come get the potions. Let's do this, Pearl says, handing her bag to Elizabeth. Pulling the potions from her bag, Elizabeth picks one, presenting it. Well, how about this one? It isn't quite actually a potion. It is condensed alcohol. Its alcoholic content is greater than its volume should allow. How about we share so we don't kill our livers? Oh, that sounds great. Let's get wasted. I mean, physically, you have to be an adult by now, right? Well, what does that matter? Well, if you drink alcohol when you are young, it can hinder your development. One night of jubilance won't hurt permanently, right? At least for my birthday? I guess not. Wait, I have an idea. Let's dilute it so we don't drink it all at once, Pearl exclaims, digging in her bag. After a second, she pulls forth a bottle of wine, presenting it triumphantly. Uncorking the bottle, Elizabeth adds the clear liquid from the test tube, and Pearl pulls out 2 glasses. The two drink, downing half the bottle quickly, becoming intoxicated by the burning beverage. Hours into the night, their minds swaying, Pearl and Elizabeth giggle to themselves before they can no longer keep their eyes open, and they fall asleep. When the next morning comes, Elizabeth and Pearl awake to the searing light that pierces into Elizabeth's room and a painful throbbing in their heads. Reluctantly, Pearl returns to the deck and works through the day with head throbbing and mouth dry. The day does pass, bringing evening, where Pearl groggily returns to Elizabeth's room. Stepping into the room, Pearl gestures to the still half-filled bottle of wine, saying, All right, Lizzie, give me that. I'm pouring it overboard. And we are never doing that again. Pearl takes the bottle and, returning to the deck, pours its contents into the ocean before returning to her room and returning to sleep. Day comes again, and again without incident passes. Another day comes over the ship and passes into night, bringing Pearl, who slips past Aldrin's scrutinizing gaze, to Elizabeth's room. There, Pearl asks, "So, Doctor, what are you doing to me tonight?" "Well, I was thinking this potion, an elixir that is supposed to cause a person to go mute. For a short time, of course, not permanently." "Oh, so you want to shut me up?" Pearl asks with a sarcastic pout in her face. "It isn't that. We just need to test all of the potions." "Take it easy, Lizzie. I'm joking with you." Pearl explains with a laugh, taking the test tube filled with white and silver amalgamation, continuing, "What are you going to be taking?" "I can't really decide. I'm stuck between one that improves memory and one which is supposed to make everything taste sour." "Oh, the sour one sounds fun." "If I'm not going to be allowed to speak, it would be hilarious to see you puckered up from a slice of bread." "Fine. I should probably get some food to test it. Plus, I'm hungry," Elizabeth said, grabbing one of the potions, with a milky green syrup within it, and standing to leave her room. Pearl and Elizabeth return to the room with the arms filled with many types of food, and with Pearl spinning in the chair around to sit with the back between Elizabeth and her. The two tap the bottoms of the potion together and drink. The mixtures share in their viscosity, causing both women to cringe at the consistency of the substance that as they slide slowly down Elizabeth and Pearl's throats, leaving a feeling of residue in their wake. When the thick liquid hits their stomach destinations, they take no time before beginning their effect on their subjects. Pearl feels the film in her throat harden before it begins to make her feel her throat contracting. The feeling grows, but never becomes painful or causes Pearl to feel as though she's suffocating. Opening her mouth, Pearl tries to explain what she is experiencing to Elizabeth, but no sound escapes from her mouth as the air passes outward. Elizabeth smacks her tongue against the top of her mouth with the potion taking effect, causing her saliva to produce profusely. The residue does not thin within Elizabeth's mouth, filling with saliva, but seems to thicken as her spit begins to taste sweet. A look of curiosity takes Elizabeth's face, and she grabs one of the buns that she and Pearl brought to the room, and taking a bite, expecting the taste to be sour, she is surprised when instead her mouth is the succulence of a fresh piece of cake. Turning to Pearl, Elizabeth exclaims with a full mouth, "Oh my gosh, Pearl, this is amazing. This bread tastes like cake. If it even feels moist and fresh in my mouth." Pearl looks at Elizabeth with a sarcastic, angry expression, and with a deep breath, she goes to yell at Elizabeth with the potion that worked. Again, air escapes from her without taking hold in her voice. Then, with a tap on her head, Pearl waits for Elizabeth to establish a telepathic link. Putting the bread down, Elizabeth wipes her face, responding telepathically, "Oh yeah, sorry, so I guess that means it's working?" "You think? And what is this, that the bread tastes like cake? That bun is going stale. There's no way." "I promise you that it does." "Sure thing. You just don't want to let me have any fun," Pearl thinks to Elizabeth with a roll of her eyes. "Seriously, I promise. Whatever, just keep trying to talk so we can see how long your silence lasts." The two sit in silence as Pearl bobs her head, trying to speak on the second, every second, for an hour, when only barely audible, her voice calls in a whisper, Lizzie. Her eyes widen as joy returns to her face, looking at Elizabeth as she continues. That's a relief. My voice is back. At least, kind of. Well, I'm going to go get some sleep. I'll check in on you in the morning about how much more my voice comes back. Pearl leaves Elizabeth's room, and Elizabeth goes about eating a feast of sweets formed from old food on the brink of spoiling, before falling unconscious in a sugar-induced slumber. The sun comes, and Pearl wakes Elizabeth from her sugar coma, and rubbing her eyes, Elizabeth asks, Morning, Pearl. Did your voice come back? In full-voiced splendor, Pearl sings, Yes, it did. Thank goodness. All right, well, I'm up. You should get to the main deck, Elizabeth responds, sliding out of the hammock, still in her dress, having not changed before falling asleep. The next couple of days pass uneventfully, again bringing Pearl into Elizabeth's room for another round of tests, repeating, So, doctor, what are we doing to me today? Rolling her eyes again, Elizabeth responds, presenting a test tube with a silvery clear liquid saturated with a lightly sparkling glitter, saying, Well, I was thinking if you have more teeth coming in, might as well make all of them sparkly white. Sure, I guess the only thing lacking from my looks is a perfect smile. And what about you? Are you going to be taking that memory potion, trying to help with your studying? Blushing, Elizabeth smiles away, responding, So, it's a lot to learn. Not judging you, Pearl says with a shrug, taking the teeth-whitening formula. She offers the bottom to Elizabeth to tap, tapping the test tube filled with a muted pink and gray formula against Pearl's. Elizabeth shares in imbibing them. The two liquids are strange and don't share in consistency or taste. Pearl's is thin and tastes like fluoride while not being toxic, and Elizabeth's is thick, almost gummy, with the distinct taste of old meat. As with the potions before, it is only a few short moments before their mixture with the stomach acid of the girls begins churning. After a moment, they both feel their stomachs settle with no immediate signs of anything changed to either of them. With boredom taking hold, Pearl is surprised by an awful taste filling her mouth. Opening the window, she spits out into the ocean, watching in the gold glow emanating from Elizabeth's room, a wad of red leave her mouth to move to splashing into the water. Eyes widening and concerned, Pearl turns to Elizabeth, asking with blood oozing from her mouth, Lizzie, why is my mouth bleeding? Looking back at Pearl, Elizabeth shrugs, I don't know. Might be part of the potion taking effect. We should get some sleep. And we will worry about the bleeding if you still are in the morning. With the bold bode of confidence from Elizabeth, Pearl steps from the room, saying, Sure, I'll just drool red tonight. Night passes and morning comes, with relief for Pearl, whose mouth no longer bleeds. Elizabeth knocks on Pearl's door, entering to ask, So, how are you feeling this morning? Feeling her teeth having fully converted into sharp, shark-like teeth, Pearl smiles at Elizabeth, asking, Well, my mouth stopped bleeding. Is my smile wider? Well, I think so. Cool, Pearl exclaims, spinning Elizabeth around and tying the ribbon bow before sprinting to the main deck at her name being called by Aldrin's voice.